Morning, everyone. Um, Today we'll be dealing about childhood psychiatric disorders, which is a subspecialty. It's a subspecialty of psychiatry, and probably you'll not get a question in your psychiatry paper. You may get one or two in your pediatrics paper, especially you may get questions on ADHD or autism or maybe neurosis, not in your general medicine, but from your pediatrics. Okay. Uh, Now, just brief note on development. Maybe you have gone through your pediatrics postings, in which for every case you will take a detailed developmental history. And so, for pediatrics is concerned, you will be dealing with gross motor skills, your fine motor, then socio-personal, and then language development. So, in addition to that, so there are also cognitive development and moral development. So, a child who is born has a pretty mature central nervous system, but as the age progresses, there's a gradual myelination of the central nervous system, which results in development of each and every skill at a particular age. So, if you take gross motor, so initially visible is motor development, right? Neck holding. By 2 months, the child has to smile. There's a development of social smile. Then there is neck holding. Then there is the baby is able to sit with support. He's able to roll over his back. Then he's able to sit with support, sit without support. Then he'll be able to stand with support, walk with support. And so as the age progresses, there is each and every skill developing at a particular age. And then you have fine motor, wherein initially the child has difficulty in holding. So there will be palmar grasp, wherein he holds his objects with his palm. Gradually, he's able to transfer objects from one hand to the another. And he's able to reach out for the objects. And there is, by around 9 months or 8 months, there is pincer grasp. So as the age progresses, each and every skill will be learned. So then, for language, an expressive language and a receptive language. So the child initially he babbles, he coos, but around 1 year or 10 months he'll start telling two syllables, two-lettered words. Then gradually three-lettered words. Then he'll join two or three words into form simple sentences. And gradually complex sentences are formed. And finally paragraphs. And by the age of 5 or 4, he'll be able to tell a story. That is language development. And coming to social and personal development, so social smile is the one which develops at the age of 2 months. Gradually he'll be able to recognize his mother, and he'll try to reach out his mother or call for his mother. By around 7 months, he'll be able to view himself as a separate one in mirror, and he'll enjoy mirror play. Then stranger anxiety develops. Then he'll know his identity, he'll know his name, he'll know his gender, he'll know the gender of the other people. So he can let us have social and personal development gradually occurs. In addition to that, you have cognitive development wherein he'll understand, he'll be able to solve problems. So there is development of memory, rationalize, concept formation, and everything gradually develops as the age progresses. In addition to that, you have moral development, wherein there is pro-social behavior. The patient will form, the baby will develop empathy. Empathy is how the other persons are feeling, understanding the feelings of the other person. So he'll be able to tell what is right and what is wrong. So he'll be understanding responsibility for his actions, and he'll be able to reason. So these are the various subheadings under which the development of a child progresses. So and so when a case of when a child comes to a psychiatry, in addition to the presenting problem, a very detailed history of the development, especially with reference to almost all the parameters, have to be taken into consideration. Okay, then so because there is development in various aspects or various spheres of the life, So lots of theories have been put forward. For example, Jean Piaget was the one who has put forward a theory on intellectual development. That is how a cognition of a child develops based on his age. So he has. These are not probably, this is just for your information. So based on that, for 2 years, after 2 years of age, we call it a sensory motor stage, wherein just by his senses, what is by his five senses, the child will be exploring the environment, and the child will be understanding the environment based on his sensory input. Then you have a pre-operational stage wherein the he uses his senses but in a better way in order to understand and explore the environment, and he'll be trying to form certain schemas. And then you have uh, so if you take a 3 or a 4 year old, he'll not have that much of insight into what causality. So this happened because of that. Maybe if something untoward things happen, the child will be feeling that okay, I haven't listened to my mom today. That is why there's an earthquake. So which is not true. So that is pre-operational stage. Then you have concrete operation stage. For example, if you give a glass of water, say you take 1 liter of water and put it in a tall container, tall beaker, and take the same amount of 1 liter of water and place on a tray, though the water is same, the child feels that the tall beaker has more water than the water in the tray. This is because he cannot understand the concept. So this thinking is still at a concrete level, and then after 11 years, then gradually formal operations and abstract thinking gets developed. Okay, so the same thing. We all had a question when we were kids. So there is 1 kg of iron, and you have 1 kg of cotton. Which is more, which is weight, I mean, which is of more weight? Most of us have replied 1 kg of iron is more weight, has more weight than 1 kg of cotton, because cotton is, you perceive it to be very light, but iron you think it is very heavy. So but actually it is not true. Both of them, irrespective of the size or shape, both of them are 1 kg, but most of us would have given the answer 1 kg of iron is of more weight than 1 kg of cotton. So that is a stage of concrete operations. Okay, now this is cognitive development, and we had Sigmund Freud, who has given psychosexual stages of development. I'm not going to details of any of those, wherein he has described oral phase, anal phase, urethral phase, and there was this phallic phase, latency phase, and genital phase. So, in according to him, the entire energy is concentrated at a particular area of the body, and through that area is the child is exploring. For example, if you take a child from 0 to 18 months, his response or his interaction with his environment is only through his mouth. That is what according to psychosexual stages PG. So that is based on it. He has given his oral phase. So someone who has not passed oral phase completely, or there has been stuck, he has been stuck at oral phase, later stage he'll develop all oral related behavioral problems, something like addictions, addictions like alcoholism or cigarette smoking. These are because of non-passage or non-resolution of the oral phase. Then we have Eric Erikson, who has given psychosocial stages. Psycho Sigmund Freud for psychosexual stages, and Eric Erikson has given psychosocial stages of development. Okay, then we have this learning theories. So like how a child learns. The child line learns by either behavioral, like operant conditioning or classical conditioning. Two stimuli occur together, so then the others, non-stim, you have uh, operant conditioning. You have this classical conditioning. Then you have social learning, where he'll see the social situations, and according to the situations he'll learn to act in that particular situations. And you have observational learning. So usually children usually follow this, what they follow what the others are doing. So that is imitate learning by seeing, learning by doing, and learning by imitation. Okay, that is learning theories. Then we have attachment. How does a child attach to his or her principal caregiver? That is attachment theory. So in this attachment, as I already said, the crux of child development is maximum stimulation and the infant and mother or the principal caretaker. The attachment, the strength of attachment between these two is the one which plays a very important role in development of the child. Not only mental development or cognitive development, but the more important social and emotional development of the child. And it also protects from a lot of psychiatry or a lot of psychiatric problems or psychopathology in the adulthood. So now coming to a brief note on so this class will usually is a just a bird's eye view of all psychiatric possible child psychiatric disorders. So if you take mood disorders, anxiety, schizophrenia, obsessive compulsive disorder, and substance abuse, these can be seen irrespective of any age. These can be seen either in childhood or there may be in adulthood or in old age also. And schizophrenia is a bit rare in old age, except for schizophrenia. All the other things can be seen at any age. But yes, there are certain disorders which are very specific onset, which have a specific onset in childhood, and we'll be dealing mostly with those disorders. The first and foremost is intellectual disability, or with what a or previous term is mental retardation. Then they have there are specific learning disorders, communication disorders, then you have motor disorders, autism spectrum disorders, ADHD, and feeding and eating disorders of infancy, and elimination disorders. In addition to that, you have behavioral problems like conduct disorder and oppositional defiant disorder. With intellectual disability, we all know this about this intellectual disability, and certain movies also have depicted this intellectual disability. If someone would have watched the age-old classic Swati Mutyam, the lead actor Kamal Hassan is probably a case of mild mental retardation. If someone would have watched Anjali, uh, that is again on mental retardation, and Amma Cheppindi of Sarvanand and Allari narration Pillaindukane, these are all the cases of mental retardation, but most of them were mild mental retardation. So, intellectual disability is a global developmental delay. That is, almost all the aspects of development are delayed. Not there is no specific. Maybe all are delayed, but one there might be delay in one sphere more than the delay in the other sphere. But as a whole, all the aspects of development, right from fine motor, from gross motor, social personal, and then language, all are delayed. That is a global developmental delay. So you have lots of etiology. You have prenatal factors, natal factors, and postnatal factors. And you have chromosomal. You have syndromes associated with mental retardation, and the most common one is Down syndrome. Uh, then you have Turner syndrome. You have Klinefelter syndrome. There are Edwards syndrome, Patau syndrome. There are certain cases. If you see, this is lysosomal storage disorders. We have mitochondrial disorders. All these storage disorders, mitochondrial disorders, they result in progressive. These are progressive disorders wherein the disability actually worsens over time. Okay, then if we take perinatal factors, there are hypoxias, there are perinatal infections, you have touch infections with mother and maternal drug use, and for postnatally, someone had encephalitis, some meningoencephalitis, maybe viral or bacterial after birth, they may have uh, and postnatal, you do not call it mental retard, that might be an acquired cause of mental retardation. And whatever the development that has been achieved that by the kid who has a postnatal infection, either that gets halted or there will be further slow down on the progression, or the child may actually regress back to the previous developmental stage and he may forget whatever he has learned. So the child with mental retardation presents to you, most of us we feel that okay we cannot do anything and just send them back. No. So if a child with intellectual disability comes, the first thing is you have to assess the level of functioning or level of IQ. So further, there are lots of tests which are done, but for so far a child less than 5 years or whose development is still under the way, it is better to go for a developmental assessment or there is a developmental schedule we have. So, for example, the child should be able to have a social smile at 2 months, or there should be neck holding by 4 months. So, we ask the principal caretaker or the mother and look for all the developmental milestones which have been attained in all the four subgroups, and then you assess, the chronological age of the patient. Then by the milestone that the child has attained, the highest milestone that the child has attained, the developmental age, and finally the developmental age by chronological age into 100 will give the IQ. And based on the IQ, you classify the child into a mild mental retardation, wherein the IQ is about 55 to 80, and moderate mental retardation, the IQ is around 35 to 60, and severe mental retardation and profound mental retardation. In addition, from 80 to 90, you call them as dull normals or borderline intelligence, and normal IQ is around 90 to 110. Okay, so after once the child has come, you assess the IQ, then you look for highest level of functioning in each sphere. Then you also look for comorbidities. So, in case of severe and profound mental retardation, a child may have uh, seizures and other behavioral disturbance. The most common comorbidities are seizures, especially in severe and profound mental retardation, and the other comorbidities are behavioral disturbances like aggression, irritability, temper tantrums, and all. So you have to assess for comorbidities, and then you have to look for other systems for the presence of any other issues. For example, child with the Down syndrome presents, and so you know all the criteria, or what are all the syndromic manifestations of Down syndrome. So you go for an echocardiogram to know for um, endocardial cushion deficits, or you go for an ultrasound to see the number of kidneys or undescended kidney. And then the other investigations. So like that's depending upon the child presents with you assess AIQ, you look for comorbidities to try to find the cause of mental retardation, whether it is progressive or non-progressive. Can these be put under a syndrome or not? And these are important only for assessment of prognosis, not for any managemental issues. So once you have formulated, everything has come. So for behavioral problems, you treat with medication. So someone who's aggressive, someone is irritable, go for antipsychotic. Someone is impulsive, or so obsessive or repetitive actions, you go for fluoxetine or SSRIs. For impulsivity, you go for SSRIs. That is how you manage these comorbidities. Someone has seizures, treat for seizures. Okay. So then the most important thing is teaching the child. So the severe and profound mental retardation, they usually are bedridden. They cannot come out of the house. They'll be staying with their parents, and they cannot attend to themselves. So that is someone with a profound mental retardation who's 20-year-old is actually able to do things which can be done by a 4-year-old. To imagine the plight of the mothers and parents if someone has a kid with these type of mental retardation. And but our crux is, but yeah, and happier thing is, after 100 children with mental retardation, severe and profound constitute of only 10, around 10%. So you have 90 children, at least 80 to 90 children with mild and mental retardation who can be trained. So if we take a child with mild mental retardation, he can be educated. Probably he will not be able to do complex mathematics. He cannot read complex paragraphs, remember them. But yes, he can read. Uh, he can actually do these mental retardation people. They can be employed. They can be trained, and they can be employed for semi-skilled work and unskilled work. Okay, so the goal of management of a child with mental retardation is, first thing, he should be able to attend to himself. That is, he should be able to brush his teeth, he should be able to bathe himself, he should be able to dress himself, he should be able to feed himself, and he should be able to go to defecate and urinate all on himself. That is the first basic things which have to be taught. And after that, then uh, helping the mother in household activities. Maybe a child with mild or moderate IQ, he cannot go and cook, but he can clean utensils, he can clean vegetables, he can groom the house, he can wash clothes, he can dry clothes, and he can fold these clothes. So these can be trained. So these are difficult to train, but one thing at a time. If the parents train them, these children will learn. Okay, then coming to vocational rehabilitation. So these are for basic skills for his life. Then what are his essentials for day-to-day activities he should learn, and then if at all the child is able to cope up with these two, he may be tried. We may try to vocationally employ them for. We may plan for vocational rehabilitation. So probably a security guard doesn't need any formal education, right? So there are certain occupations which do not need formal education, and which you call label them as semi-skilled or unskilled workers. In those areas, these children can be employed. So it's a comprehensive task which should be done by psychologists, occupational therapists, and psychiatrists and pediatricians also. Okay, once you complete intellectual disability, you come to communication disorder. So, in intellectual disability, as I said, it's a global developmental delay in wherein each and every aspect of development is impaired. But now we have specific disturbances or difficulties in communication, where we call it as communication disorders. And mind you, in these children, the other aspects are absolutely normal. Okay, so communication includes language and speech disorders. So communication is the process wherein whatever is happening or whatever is told is understood by us. We'll process the information, and there is we output it. We put it out either in form of words or read either we may write them or we may point out by gestures. If you see small children, they'll point out objects. I need that. I want that. They'll show a finger, which means I want it. So that is a gesture speech. The child understood. So though he is not able to produce vocal speech, he understood that there is something which he needs it. So and he is able to convey it by means of a gesture. So that is we call it as a gesture speech. Gradually, as the time progresses, he say, "I want that." So by his vocal, and we can also communicate by writing. So that is communication. So we are using language as a means of tools of communicating to one another. So in language you have expressive language deficits and mixed receptive and expressive deficits. So language is again same. You understand, you comprehend, you process, and you output. Okay, so we have Broca's, you all know Broca's aphasia and Wernicke's aphasia, something like that. That is an expressive language deficit, and we have mixed receptive and expressive deficit. Expressive is you cannot express. I mean, the apparatus or which is necessary for expression is has been impaired, so the child is not able to express appropriately. But he is able to, because the comprehension part is intact. He can comprehend it, so he may express in few words or inappropriate. There might be inappropriate construction of sentences. There might be omissions. There is no grammar. There is no pragmatism. But yes, this child understands, and he tries to express in whatever the language or vocabulary that he has. In case of mixed receptive and expressive deficits, the child has no comprehension. So something like a Wernicke's aphasia. Child has no comprehension, and as a result, there is no expression also. So for these two languages or for any communication disorder, the management is by speech therapy. Okay. So then you have speech disorders. Right, and you have three types of speech disorders, which is a speech sound disorder, childhood onset fluency disorder, and pragmatic communication disorder. Speech sound disorder, if you see children, some of them, there is difficulty in pronouncing certain letters. So some will be cannot say ra, so they'll say la. For example, lari, they say lali, something like that. So they'll not be able to pronounce certain syllables. Okay, then ga, there are difficulties with pronouncing ga, la. like that. So that is a speech sound disorder. So there might be an omission or there might be a substitution. For example, someone cannot say blue, either he say boo because he cannot say la, he'll just take out la and say boo, or he may substitute that syllable by another syllable, or he may say brew. So he has substituted la with ra. That is speech sound disorder. Okay, then you have childhood onset fluency disorder, or we call it as stammering or stuttering. Okay, there is abnormality in the flow of his speech. That is childhood onset fluency disorder or stuttering. And then you have pragmatic communication disorder. In this, everything is okay, but the child does not understand how to speak in a social situations. Like he has to go and greet someone. No, he cannot greet him. So when we talk, there is a tone or pitch to the speech. Like at sometimes we reduce the voice, at sometimes we increase our voice. When there is a comma, we try to pause, and when there is a full stop, we stop there. So there are certain rules of communication, and those rules of communication they cannot be followed well by children with pragmatic communication disorder. For example, you see a robotic speech, like there won't be any commas, there won't be any emotion, or there may be feel, the so-called feel associated with the communication. And if you see, there are certain very good orators who are very good at talking. They have uh, everything. You can understand a comma, you can understand a semicolon, you can, they have their pauses in speech and they have their ups and downs in speech, which makes the communication more effective to the audiences. Those things are abnormal in children with pragmatic communication disorder, and this is important because the child will not be able to perform well in social situations. Then you have specific learning disorders. So you might be well versed with dyslexia, right? That is specific learning disorder with impairment in reading, which has been depicted in the movie Tare Zameen Par. Okay, so you have impairment in reading, and so by up till the age of 7 years, there will be a bit of confusion between mirror letters, right? B and D, M and W, N and M. So the P and Q. That confusion is normal, and if this confusion persists after 7 years, then you have to think about dyslexia or specific learning disorder with impairment in reading, which is more seen in boys, okay, than girls. And so there'll be difficulties, there'll be lots of spelling mistakes, so there'll be poor underachievers. The English teacher will be very, very irritated with these kids because there are lots of spelling mistakes. So they'll be very poor at studies. So management is first thing is you have to identify them. Then management is by remedial education, wherein how we learn is we learn a letter, a group of letters we make form it a word, and group of words we form a sentence, and group of sentences makes a paragraph, and group of paragraph that makes a lesson. So children with dyslexia they cannot go in this manner because the difficulty is with identifying the letters. So for them the approach should be in a reverse way. First thing, they should be taught the essence of the lesson, and then one paragraph at a time, then a sentence at a time, and then a word at a time, and last the emphasis should be on spelling and letters. Okay, and someone gives has a certificate of dyslexia. If the child appears to the examinations, he will have one paper less. That if we appear for three languages, and if someone has dyslexia, he can appear just only for two languages, and there will be extra time that will be given to the children with learning disorders. For someone with impairment in mathematics, you call them as, I mean, dyscalculia. They'll be allowed a calculator inside also for the examination. And a specific learning disorder with impairment in written expression, you call it as dysgraphia. It was a previous term. They'll be having difficulties in writing in written language. For them, they'll be given extra time. Also, they can apply for a scribe also for examinations. So for specific learning disorders, the management is by remedial education. Only just train that too in a manner uh, which will ease the learning process in these kids with specific learning disorders. In Mandu, again, in specific learning disorders, all the other aspects of development are up to the chronological age except for this learning. Then you have motor disorders. So in motor disorders, you have developmental coordination disorder. So if someone would have watched the movie, sorry, just no stand the one, the maid. Jagrata, if someone says Jagrata, just take care, she'll drop the whatever, the utensils, whatever she holds them in her hands. That is clumsiness. So the clumsiness is a hallmark of developmental coordination disorder. So these children will be clumsy. So they cannot do coordinated movements. So these will be clumsy. There will be difficulties in each and every activity in the day-to-day activity. That is developmental coordination disorder. We have the stereotypic movement disorder. The stereotypic movement is a repetitive movement, that's a purposeless movement that will be going on and on and on, something like head banging. So, child they'll be banging their head continuously, or they may be plucking their head, or there may be nail biting, or there may be hand flapping. These are repetitive stereotypic movements. So, these stereotypic movements, these are self soothing or self stimulating. So you see these types of movements in children with autism and mental retardations. And these children with mental retardation, they will be trying to soothe themselves by trying to do this particular type of movement. And if these are not and these movements are seen without any of these mental retardation or autism, you label it as a stereotypic movement disorder. Then you have Tourette's disorder. It is etic disorder. Hitchki is a recent movie which was enacted by Rani Mukherjee, wherein she depicts a case of vocal tics. So, tic is an involuntary sudden contraction of a muscle. Uh, okay, these tics can be motor tics and you can have vocal tics. Okay. In motor tics, there might be sudden blinking of eyes or sudden jerking movements of the shoulder or sudden just brief contraction. These are you have motor tics. Again, in motor tics, you have simple motor tics and you have complex motor tics. In case of vocal tics, suddenly they'll be starting and they'll be repeating one single syllable. Or therein you have echolalia and echopraxia, or there are in complex modatic there is coprolalia, wherein they'll be uttering obscene words. That is a vocal tic. And Tourette's disorder is characterized by both motor and vocal tics. And Tourette's disorders and tics are actually more common in ADHD. And someone with a Tourette's disorder, he may have a comorbid obsessive compulsive disorder also. And these tics are actually supposed to be because they actually relieve anxiety, something like an obsession. So you do the tick, okay, anxiety comes down, and before the onset of the tick, the person will have a sense of uneasiness or anxiety, and once the tick is done and the involuntary movement is over, the anxiety gets relieved, and that is why it is again repeated on and on and on. In addition to Tourette's disorder, you have persistent motor or vocal tic disorder. We have feeding and eating disorders, wherein pica. So, wherein any non-edible substance which if the child consumes, that is pica. So, they'll be having very specific foods that will be taken. Uh, Children will be eating clay. They'll be eating chalk pieces. There are children who eat. I had a patient who specifically eats the clay on groundnuts with shell. You have groundnuts with shell, right? And the amount, the clay which is on the shell of groundnuts is the one which is eaten by this particular fish. So everyone they'll be having a specific uh, preference for these non-edible foods. And rumination disorder is, so the cow ruminates like that. Rumination disorder is a purposeless and effortless regurgitation of the contents of gastric gastric contents into the mouth, and that will be ruminated and will be taken back, which is a functional eating disorder. And avoidant or restrictive food intake disorder, wherein the children will have specificities and based on the texture. The child will not like certain types of foods and will try to avoid those particular types of foods based on the texture and the sensory characteristics of the food. Then there are elimination disorders wherein we have encopresis and enuresis. Encopresis is involuntary passage of fecal matter, and the theory behind this is the child would have had a painful defecation at one or the other point of time. So he'll stop defecating himself because of the anticipated pain. So as a result, he will, whenever he'll have a sense of defecating, he'll hold the fecal matter. So he'll hold the fecal matter to such an extent by contacting the external anal sphincter. Then there is an overflow, and finally there is incontinence. That is the pathophysiology behind encopresis. And management is first thing is assurance that again it is not going to be painful, and use of laxatives. Then enuresis is involuntary passage of urine, which is normal. So nighttime, or we call it as bedwetting, and which is normal till age of 5 to 7. And if it persists after 5 to 7 years, we call it as enuresis. We have nocturnal enuresis. There are sometimes diurnal enuresis also. And management is we have bedwetting alarms, wherein once the underpants get soaked, their alarm starts ringing. Then the child wakes up, he is taken to a bathroom, and then he'll be urinating there. Or you can use imipramine. Is a drug which is used, which is a tricyclic antidepressant, which can be used for enuresis. And you have desmopressin, and you have lots of behavioral changes wherein you reduce the amount of fluid intake in the evenings. And have once that we have a bedwetting diary wherein the child hasn't bedwetted on this particular day, you will try to there's a positive reinforcement by trying by a reward mechanism. Okay, you try to reward the child on the dry days, and so that he'll have motivation to try to not to wet in bed. Now coming to the core autism spectrum disorders. So previously these were labeled under the gross term pervasive developmental disorders, which included autism, Asperger's disorder, childhood disintegrated disorder, Rett's disorder. But now all these have been combined into autism spectrum disorders. So, and if you would have watched the movie My Name is Khan, that lead actor suffers from Asperger's syndrome, which was a pervasive developmental disorder. Now it has come under autism spectrum disorders. So the core features of autism spectrum disorders are impairment in qualitative impairment in social interaction, communication, and restricted and repetitive stereotype pattern of behaviors, interests, and activities. So the core thing is impairment in social interaction. Then the child has language, but he will not use it. He doesn't want to communicate with anyone. So when communication, there are certain rules of communication. There are certain rules of communication, and like you have to look into the eyes while the other person talks. Okay, to at least indulge in communication, you have non-verbal cues which have to be followed. You have verbal cues that have to be followed. In child with autism spectrum disorder, there are nothing. He has zero interest in social interaction. He understands, he comprehends, but he doesn't want to communicate. So he doesn't look at your face. He'll be just all aloof. He'll be in his own world with zero interest in social interaction. In addition to that, they have restricted, repetitive, and stereotype behavior, something like hand flapping, head banging, and there are certain restricted interests. He'll be very interested in a particular car or in car. So these children will be playing with toys in their way, not in a regular fashion. They'll have their interest and they'll play with the toys in their manner. So most common thing is he'll be obsessed with a car, so he'll insist in buying hundreds of cars. So and all these cars are lined in their house, one behind the other, uh, and or he may have obsession with the wheels, so he'll be constantly turning the wheels of the cars. So this is restricted and repetitive stereotyped pattern of behaviors and interests. So autism spectrum disorders. So first thing you have to identify the child, and the thing is, the child will be very normal till 1 year. He'll have language. He'll say mama. He'll say dada, and after 1 year, whatever he has learned, he'll stop talking. Like by 18 months, these symptoms come. So this is a disorder which usually manifests before less than 3 years. So any child less than 3 years presents think of autism spectrum disorder. Any behavioral disturbance plus rule out autism spectrum disorder. Less than 3 years child present with hyperactivity, rule out autism spectrum disorder. You have impairment difficulty in communication or social interaction, first rule of autism spectrum disorders. So the earlier the earlier you identify, more will be the prognosis will be good. So again, management is only by therapy. So for most of the child psychiatric disorders, management is therapy, except for a few. ADHD, yes, management you can manage by drugs. You have Tourette disorder, you can manage by drugs. But other than that, every other child psychiatric disorder, it is management is only by therapy. For autism spectrum disorder, the early you identify, you manage the child accordingly. So for autism, you have impairment in social interaction. So you need to teach social skills to the child. Then there are impairments in communication. You have to encourage the child to follow the rules of communication and to communicate them. So in addition to that, we have to also think about his education. So they have lots of remedial educational programs, so which actually deal with both the management of autism and also they include education as a curriculum. We have early onset Denver's model. Right? We have lots of models based upon the child at which you, based upon the age at which you identify the autism in the child. So it's a comprehensive and management which is only by therapy. Then we have comorbid behavioral disturbances, and for that behavioral disturbances, you need to have an applied behavioral analysis. So that is autism spectrum disorder. The kids they have, they throw it. You want them to take out. They do not want to go out. So what do? They should not go out. So they'll throw a temper tantrum. They just roll down on the floor. They say they cry. They bang their heads, and you actually think about why this child is behaving in this way. But when you just analyze the situation, there is an antecedent, there is the behavior, and you try to analyze it. So applied behavioral analysis, and there's a consequence. So it is A, B, C. What are the antecedents of if there are behavioral disturbances? What is the antecedent? What is the cause of the behavior, and which has resulted in that abnormal behavior? And what are the consequences? And how? And later on, you understand that this fellow, okay, he's trying to communicate that he doesn't want to go outside, but because he doesn't communicate it by communication or language, he tried to uh, communicated by his behavior and trying to change this, identifying the antecedents. These can be later on used to actually improve the behavior of the child. So applied behavioral analysis is therapy which we use for management of behavioral problems in autism spectrum disorders. And then you have remedial education, social skills training, and based on this, as I said, educational programs along with management of the core features of autism in uh, uh, the early onset developmental model, and you have other models of management of autism spectrum disorders. The behavioral disturbances are so intense, you can actually use an antipsychotic, something like risperidone, which is FDA approved for use of aggression and behavioral for management of behavioral problems in autism spectrum disorders. Coming to ADHD, so it is the name itself suggests you have attention deficit, so the deficits in attention and hyperactivity. So you have the inattentive type, the hyperactive impulses, and